There comes a moment when the effort stops working, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because life no longer responds to trying. You know this moment. Plans carefully made begin to loosen at the edges. The future you rehearsed refuses its cue. Something you were certain would hold, health, work, a relationship, a sense of direction, quietly slips its grip. Not dramatically, not with thunder, just enough to let you know it is no longer in your hands. You reach for it anyway, out of habit, out of fear, out of the long training that said if you hold tighter, things will stay. But life behaves like water. The more urgently you close your fingers, the faster it runs through the small spaces you didn't notice were there. You feel that hollow pause inside your chest, that place where breath meets silence before it decides what to do next. You stand there, still moving, still functioning, but inwardly unsure. The old map no longer matches the terrain. The road keeps going, but the signs have gone quiet. This is not panic yet. It is something more tender. A kind of disorientation that humbles you without explanation. You realize that the strategies that once worked now feel heavy, almost inappropriate, like wearing winter clothes in warm weather. You remember trying to control a shoreline, how waves erase footprints without argument, how the sea never explains itself. You can mark the sand with intention, with care, even with love, but the water arrives anyway, not cruelly, not personally, just faithfully being what it is. So it is here. Life does not oppose you. It simply does not belong to you. There is a quiet grief in this recognition, not because you are losing something external, but because you are losing the belief that you were ever in charge. The belief that safety came from effort, that certainty could be earned, that fear could be managed if you stayed vigilant enough. And now vigilance feels exhausted. The mind keeps offering solutions that no longer persuade the body. The heart senses something larger at work, though it cannot name it. You feel small, not diminished, but honestly sized for the first time in a while. This is where acceptance begins, though it does not announce itself. It arrives disguised as uncertainty, as the ache of realizing that what you were trying to hold was never truly yours to keep. And for a brief moment, you stop bracing, just long enough to notice the breath arriving on its own. You begin to notice something quietly unsettling. The pain itself is not new, but the way it lingers is. The event has already happened, the door closed, the plan unraveled. The season changed without consulting you. The letter stayed unsent, folded once, then twice, then placed somewhere safe where it slowly lost its urgency. Life moved, cleanly and without apology, and yet something in you keeps replaying the moment before it happened, as if attention alone could reverse time, as if refusal were a form of leverage. You watch the mind return again and again to the same scene, the same sentence, the same turn it wishes it had taken. Not angrily, not dramatically, just persistently, like knocking on a door that no longer exists. This is where the strain begins, not in the loss, but in the argument with it. You tell yourself it should have gone differently, that it wasn't fair, that if only one small detail had changed, everything would have held. You rehearse alternate endings, improved versions of the past, futures that now feel unreachable. Each thought is gentle on its own. Together, they form a quiet siege. Outside, life keeps moving. Trees let go of their leaves without discussion. Cold arrives when it arrives. Light shortens its stay. No season explains itself. No season resists the next. Inside, the resistance continues. You feel it as a tightening, a subtle clenching around what already is. The body knows before the mind admits it. This holding hurts, not sharply, but steadily, like standing in water and insisting it remains still around your legs. You are not suffering because something went wrong. You are suffering because something happened, and part of you refuses to let it be true. The mind believes it is protecting you. It thinks if it keeps the argument alive, the wound won't finalize. That acceptance would mean approval. That letting go would mean losing something again. But acceptance is not agreement. It is recognition. You begin to see this difference slowly, almost reluctantly. Reality does not need your permission. It has already taken place. The struggle is not changing it, only adding tension to something already complete. And here, something softens. Not all at once. Just enough to notice that the pain spikes when you push against it and eases the moment you stop. It becomes quietly obvious, like watching a storm through glass and realizing the shaking came from pressing your hands against the window. What remains when the pressure eases is not emptiness, it is stillness. And in that stillness, you sense the truth you were always approaching. Pain loosens its grip the moment it is no longer resisted. There is a moment, quiet, almost missed, when you stop pushing. Not because you solved anything, but because the effort finally exhausts itself. It feels strange at first, as if you have stepped out of a long-held posture and your body doesn't yet trust the release. The hands unclench, but they linger open, unsure. The mind waits for consequence, for collapse, for proof that letting go was a mistake. But nothing falls apart. Instead, something begins to move again. You notice it the way you notice a river when you stop trying to redirect it. The current was always there, patient, carrying leaves, carrying silt, carrying you, if you had known how to float. The struggle was never against the water. It was against the idea that you should be steering it. This is the paradox that takes time to sink in. Peace does not arrive when life finally obeys you. It arrives when you realize life never asked to. You had thought surrender meant giving up, lying down, disappearing, being swept away by forces too large to negotiate with. But surrender turns out to be something far more intimate. It is participation without tension, movement without resistance, like wind passing through tall grass, shaping it without effort, without damage. You feel this in small ways, in the breath that deepens when you stop monitoring it, in the shoulders that drop when you forget to hold them, in the way the sky moves, slowly, confidently, without ever checking if you approve. Control had promised safety, but it required constant vigilance, constant correction, constant fear of deviation. Trust, by contrast, asks almost nothing of you, except honesty about what you cannot command. This honesty brings humility, but not humiliation. You are not smaller than life. You are part of its motion. The river does not dominate the current. It is the current, shaped by its banks, responding as it goes. So are you. When you stop forcing outcomes, listening returns. You begin to sense timing instead of deadlines, direction instead of demand. The body relaxes into a rhythm it remembers but had forgotten to trust. Peace does not announce itself with certainty. It arrives as ease, as space, as the absence of a fight you didn't realize you were still having. And in that openness, you understand something simple and enduring. What flows needs no force. You don't have to look far to see how life handles change. It is happening quietly, everywhere, without instruction. A garden wilts when it is time, not out of failure, not out of neglect, but because the season has shifted. Leaves soften, colours fade, stems bow under their own honesty. Nothing in the garden apologizes. Nothing resists the shortening days. The soil receives what falls, and that is enough. You stand there and watch, and something in you recognizes the rhythm, not as metaphor, as fact. The first snow comes without asking. It does not negotiate with what was growing yesterday. It covers the ground evenly, gently, as if to say, "Rest now," and the earth does. No argument, no memory, just a clean hush settling over what has already finished its work. Nature does not rush its grief. Falling leaves take their time. Some release early. Some hold on until the last possible moment, trembling but sincere. When they let go, they don't look back at the branch. They turn once in the air, then once more, and find the ground waiting. Nothing calls this loss. Nothing calls it progress. It is simply movement. Morning returns the same way. Light does not force the dark to leave. It arrives slowly, almost politely, touching the edges first. Windows pale, shadows loosen. Birds resume their places, as if they had only stepped out briefly. Dawn never argues with night. It replaces it. You begin to feel the intelligence in this. Not a plan, not a command, an allowance. Each thing gives way when it is time. Each thing trusts what comes next, because it has always been held by what came before. No tree tries to keep its leaves forever. No field panics when it lies empty. No sky fears being overcast. Change is not treated as a problem to solve. It is treated as a condition of being alive. Watching this, your body softens. The tension you carried begins to feel unnecessary, even strange. You see that timing does not need your supervision, that completion does not require your consent, that life knows how to move through itself, not quickly, not perfectly, but faithfully. And you are standing there, breathing, noticing how the world keeps changing without falling apart. A leaf drifts down, snow melts into soil, light shifts across the floor. Nothing ends, nothing begins. Something simply moves, and everything is still enough to let it pass. There is no dramatic turning point, no announcement, no victory. Trust returns the way calm returns after rain, slowly, without asking for attention. You notice it first in the body. The shoulders no longer brace for impact. The breath deepens on its own. The heart, which had been guarded and tight, begins to soften. Not because everything is fixed, but because it no longer needs to be. The storm has passed, or perhaps it simply moved on. The ground is darker now, richer. Sunlight touches what was shaken, not to erase what happened, but to warm it. A tree stands where the wind tested it, not unchanged, rooted more honestly. You begin to sense what was hidden by the struggle. Life was never trying to defeat you. It was never setting traps or withholding safety out of cruelty. It was asking something quieter, something harder to hear when fear was loud. Release. Not as resignation, as recognition. You see how every moment of resistance came from the same place, the belief that you had to manage existence to survive it, that without constant effort, something essential would be lost. But now, in this gentler light, that belief loosens its grip. Nothing essential was taken. What fell away was the tension of guarding what could never be owned. Trust does not arrive as certainty about the future. It arrives as peace with the present, a simple willingness to meet what comes without tightening against it, like standing in still water and realizing you are already floating. You feel gratitude, but it is quiet, not the kind that celebrates outcomes, the kind that recognizes being held even when things did not go your way. The heart remembers how to be open, not naive, not unprotected, just available. The walls that once felt necessary now feel heavy. You don't tear them down. You simply stop rebuilding them. Life moves again, and you move with it. Not because you understand it, but because you no longer need to oppose it. And in this moment, ordinary, unremarkable, deeply alive, you take a breath that does not prepare for anything. You exhale, and for the first time in a long while, there is no fear in letting go. There is nothing left to solve, no tension pulling you forward, no resistance holding you back. What remains is not an answer, but a presence, steady, unhurried, wide enough to include everything that once felt unbearable. You notice how little is required now. Breath comes and goes without instruction. Hands rest open, not waiting to receive or defend. The air around you feels still, not because nothing is moving, but because nothing is being pushed. Out there, waves continue their ancient work. They rise, they fall, they dissolve into one another without memory or ambition. No wave tries to stay. No wave tries to arrive. Each one completes itself fully, then returns to what it has always been. You feel that recognition settle in you, not as a thought, but as relief. You were never meant to manage the ocean. You were never asked to hold the horizon in place. The effort you carried for so long was borrowed, from fear, from habit, from the mistaken belief that peace was somewhere ahead. But peace was never ahead. It was underneath the effort. Now that the striving has softened, you sense a quiet unity. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just the simple feeling of belonging to what is happening. Like light resting on the edge of the sea, like still air before evening cools the day. Nothing is missing. Even the parts of you that once felt broken now feel included, held without commentary. There is room for everything here, memory, sensation, silence, without any need to arrange them. You are not watching life anymore. You are in it, moving as it moves, pausing as it pauses, no longer separate from the flow you once tried to direct. This is not triumph. There is no sense of having arrived somewhere better, only the recognition that nothing needed to be reached, that the struggle itself was the noise, and what remains when it fades is already whole. You feel it in the body's ease, in the mind's quiet, in the way the world seems closer, not farther away. Ordinary things, light on water, the open sky, the sound of your own breathing, feel sufficient. Not meaningful in the way stories promise meaning, meaningful because they are here, and so you rest, not as an ending, not as a beginning, but as a gentle settling into what has always been carrying you. Like a wave returning to the ocean, you do not disappear. You are finally at ease.